So welcome everybody. It's Leah Zalams here in Sydney, Australia, coming to you on Z Access TV. And we have a very special guest today, Chris Westfall, all the way from Houston, Texas. And welcome, Chris.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. It looks like you've got palm trees in the background. Now, there ain't any water anywhere around Texas last time I was there.
Well, Houston is right on the Gulf of Mexico, so it's actually close by. But this background is I think this background might be from California. I'm not sure.
Look, welcome. And I really appreciate your time today because I know you've got a lot on the go. But your name was first hot off the press when I started to do some research into what is the current state of leadership development and coaching, not only in Australia, but globally, because clearly with everything that's going on with, how COVID has impacted us, I think one of the upshots is that the world is a very small place. And I think if anything, globally as a community, if there's a way to harness the power of things like leadership development, of things that can enable us to work through the uncertainty and create some kind of new normal sooner rather than later, how do we actually do that? And are we doing that? What is the current state? And so that's how I came across you and your articles in Forbes magazine, where it struck me that as someone who has been facilitating better leadership, better decision making in the corporate world for more than 10 years now, you're actually challenging whether we're doing any good in there. So it's almost like you're biting the dog that's feeding you. And I thought I've got to get into the back end, if you like, of just this mind that you have, Chris, because I found your writing to be very refreshing and very, very clear, really hitting on some of the things that, even though I've only been in this game myself for 3 or 4 years now, it is about, how are we reflecting? Are we reflecting? You're suggesting perhaps we reflect too much and don't actually action enough. Or, what are we actioning? Where is our focus going? So I'm really sort of keen to hear from you, I guess, give us a little bit of backstory of how you came to be such a leading kind of voice in the leadership and sales success space as well.
Well, I guess it started with some recognition that I received here in the States for my work in developing effective pitches, sales pitches, elevator pitches, et cetera. And I was recognized a few years ago as the U.S. National Elevator Pitch Champion. And from this recognition, I have been able to help companies, entrepreneurs, and executive leaders to create transformational results, even leaders in Australia, one of whom was fortunate enough to be on Channel 10 on Shark Tank Australia, where he came away as a winner on season 1 of Shark Tank Australia. Wow. And I've also coached clients onto Shark Tank here in the United States, Dragon's Den in Canada. And I've helped raise over $100 million US and counting for entrepreneurial ventures.
And that's results, extraordinary. That is extraordinary. Firstly, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But what I've been doing, Leah, it's like what you say in your tagline for Z Access. I mean, it's about helping people to see a whole new dimension. It's about expanding the conversation and seeing things that we didn't see before. And that really has been the basis of my coaching for the last 10 to 12 years. I guess what I've been on about is helping people to see things in a new way and to share things in a new way, because I believe in the power of communication, even, and maybe even especially during this time when we're experiencing this pandemic, and to point leaders towards expansion in a time of economic contraction I mean, that may
Yeah.
sound like a contradiction, but opportunities exist all around us, even now, even in this changing world. But that's why I wrote the article. That's why I stand by what I wrote in the article, is because we've got to have a pattern interrupt. And I don't mean a global pandemic. I mean a change in the way that we think about what leadership means, about what opportunity means, and about what success really looks like. Because all of those things and more are at play. They're up for grabs. And what we thought we knew doesn't apply anymore. So helping people to look in that new direction and communicate their story and live their story in new ways has been the basis of my leadership coaching.
And you know, and I listened to that, and on one level, it sounds like the holy grail of who wouldn't want that? You know, who wouldn't want that? Show me one person who wouldn't value like a higher capacity to make better decisions, right? And ultimately, when we're looking at that's been the catch cry for me also. You know, when you sort of do that deep dive into, well, why am I trying so hard? You know, to connect with people who want to actually do big things in the world, or often they're very mission driven, or they're passion driven to create some sort of change, because you need that extra drive so that the idea of thinking differently or thinking better is more important than only for your own experience. It's that ripple effect of what happens when people in influential environments or communities or businesses, and I guess that's why we coach leaders, isn't it? Because, you know, the influence does trickle from the top. That is a fact, right? The shadow aspect of a leader just is bigger than the shadow of someone deeper in the organization. I know we're doing a lot more in situational leadership and encouraging everybody to be their own leader, but there is such a responsibility for the people in those C-suite roles to take responsibility for the quality of their leadership, I think.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And so
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was like 12 months ago, it was $3.66 billion. And I think 1.66 is already in the US. I mean, the US leads the way in a lot of areas in terms of, I think, of course, you're going to have your own leadership coach. You wouldn't consider doing a CEO role or a, you know, significant role in an organization without numerous coaches and development work. So that is a norm. Is it a norm? It's certainly the perception that there's a lot more hunger and, you know, an embracing of leader development work at that very deep personal level.
I think that there is more of an embracing of that because speaking from my own experience, I do a lot of writing. I write on Forbes all the time. I have a writing coach. I have someone that I work with on a regular basis. And if you say to me, well, Chris, why is that? You're writing in Forbes all the time. You've published 7 books. Your latest one from Wiley just came out, et cetera, et cetera. Why would you have a coach?
Leadership language? Is that leadership language?
Yes, that is. I happen to, funny you should mention it. I happen to have it right here.
I'm dying to get into that. Love it.
Wiley. Yeah. But anytime you want to get good at something, you want to have a coach. I mean, and the question that I ask myself is how long do I want to wait to get good at this? How long do I want to wait to make an impact? And for me, when it came to writing, the answer was I didn't want to wait at all. I wanted to create new results, and even, you know, in hopes that someday I might write something that would capture the imagination of someone half a world away. And so the reason that people hire coaches is very simple. It's because coaching works. And if you're experiencing frustration that goes beyond just the restrictions of social distancing, if you're experiencing a frustration that says, you know what, there's something more for me. Well, how do you tap into that? How do you find where that is? And, you could say, well, I could go to school and I could learn and I could tackle these academic challenges and stuff like that. But let me ask you something. If you know all of the rules of boxing, for example, if you know all the rules of boxing, is that going to help you when you're about to get punched in the face? It's not. And it's the same thing with leadership. If you understand every leadership book ever written, and you can quote John Maxwell and you can quote Warren Bennis and whoever else, pick your favorite flavor. You can quote me, for heaven's sake. I don't know that I'm in those guys'
I've got
league,
them all
but
on my shelf. I've got them all on my shelf, Chris. I know them all.
But wouldn't you say, Leah, I mean, leadership is a verb. It's about what you do in action. It's not about reflection. I mean, I might be able to memorize Steve Jobs' autobiography, but that's not going to turn me into Steve Jobs. And so the question that I asked,
I just wanted to say, I really enjoyed that point you made, because we often make suggestions of look for role models. Who is that person that is where you're striving to be? And that's the principle of mentoring, right? We see a lot of that in the science and tech space, mentoring of young, graduates and students coming through. Well, and this is where, their makeup is what their makeup is. What is the unique, makeup of me? That's not going to be what Steve Jobs did or said or wanted. So I think I really got that message the way you described that in that article. I thought that was really well done.
Well, thank you for that. That really comes from a statistic from PwC. They did a survey and they asked CEOs, what are the 2 top leadership qualities that you look for? When you're looking for leadership qualities, what are you looking for? And I didn't know whether they would say, communication skills or financial skills, or technical skills. But here's what they said: innovation and creativity. Wow. And I thought that was very interesting. 77% of CEOs surveyed by PwC said the top 2 skills, innovation and creativity. And I tell you, Leah, I mean, at a time like this, there's one thing that we need a vaccine, but there's one thing that we need. We need innovation. We need a new way of looking at these problems, because these problems haven't been here before. These challenges of how to survive and thrive in this new normal. And I'm not even sure that I think it's just new. I don't think it's normal yet. You know what I'm saying? We have to tap into innovation. And innovation, I mean, by definition, innovation doesn't mean matching a pattern. Innovation doesn't mean do what I did. Innovation means finding that. This is how I coach my clients. I say, look, I'm not going to show you how to match a pattern. I'm going to show you how to create a pattern.
Yeah.
And it is that kind of creativity, it's not arts and crafts, it's creating something new. And from this time, this sort of time of pause, we have an opportunity to create, to innovate, and entrepreneurs are already doing it right now. I just wrote a story on Forbes about a publicly traded company here in the United States that posted a 79% increase in their sales for the month of April. And the way that they did it is through a network of nearly 3 million entrepreneurs, and 83% of those entrepreneurs are women. The company is called Etsy, and it's an online marketplace. But my point is, there's a lot of innovation, and opportunity exists for the leaders who are willing to tap into their own spirit of innovation and not match what's gone on before, but to understand that they have an opportunity to be unmatched if they choose to.
And I wonder how those leaders who have spent their lives in a corporate structure, how they respond to that, Chris. Because the entrepreneur is someone who probably didn't fit in to that corporate structure. I mean, that's a very gross, broad generalization as well, right? But, and I think this is where, and I, like you, I have a long history in sales too. And so it was always that it was the thrill of the chase, right? And the challenge and what is possible. You know, we might go all out on this and not win, but wow, we're gonna be really gunning it, going for the experience. And so, you know, that is very much that entrepreneurial spirit of being able to be in the unknown, in the uncertainty, feel the overwhelm, not have all your ducks in a row, and somehow still have that ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so I wonder whether a lot of leaders in traditional organizations have actually gone underground because they're suddenly having to, you know, coach and lead 100% remotely. How many of them have been used to doing that? You know, look at what Zoom, you know, sales have gone through the roof. I think, you know, like it's just been ridiculous, right? It's another success story in the wake of COVID. So I guess, and particularly I would say that people are starting to be looking at, well, yeah, what kind of development and coaching do I need for myself and my people now, as we come back and create, like you say, something new, because we can't go back to what was, right? COVID is that barrier in itself of going back to exactly what was. So I guess, how do you guide people in making decisions about how to spend their training dollars, their coaching dollars, or things like that? What would be your suggestion?
One of the things that I love to reference is an article by the Harvard Business Review that says, based on a survey that they created, that over 2/3 of managers are uncomfortable talking to their employees for any reason. And when the conversation becomes confrontational or corrective, that statistic changes.
So this is the managers? Was this the leaders that are uncomfortable talking about?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leah.
No, it was the internet just went a bit wonky. So it was the actual leaders are uncomfortable talking about anything that is remote, like performance review stuff, or where they have to correct people or critique people. They're not comfortable with confrontation.
Not only that, over 2/3 are uncomfortable talking to employees for any reason.
Oh,
which means yes. And I'll send you, when I read this article, it was shocking to me. But the point is, and the point that the article makes, is that we have a crisis of communication. And Sir Richard Branson said the greatest leadership skill that anyone can possess is effective leadership communication, the ability to communicate and share your ideas. And now sharing those ideas using tools like Zoom or Slack or other means to stay connected to your team. I mean, having Zoom as a tool doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to use it. And I'm not talking about where the buttons are. I'm talking about, you know what I mean? It's how do you create the same impact when you can't be there in person? And as a leader, as a team member who aspires to create greater leadership, tapping into your communication skills is vital, number one. And number two, the ability to communicate effectively right now might be the other pandemic that we're facing.
Yeah, because, you know, and that's, it's almost easier to hide and not be connecting and communicating with your team too much. But then there's the other side of it, is the micromanaging. So it's like the two extremes. You're either not there at all to provide any kind of guidance or reassurance, or, you know, all of that side of it, or it's like there's so many meetings going on, nobody gets anything done. So I think there's a lot of new learning for a lot of us, actually.
Sure. I agree with you. And I think there are a few things, there's some tips that folks can do to create the kind of interaction that's missing when you can't gather around a cup of coffee or tea in the break room. And a couple of things that I could share. One would be to shorten the length of meetings. Cut the length of meetings down. So you force people to be more focused and more attentive. The other thing that I would say, and the leaders who are watching and listening to my voice, this will resonate with them. Business is a process, and putting together a process for connection seems to me to be like a smart leadership initiative. And whether that's office hours on a Thursday afternoon when people can just show up on a Zoom call, or providing people a way to access you privately. And you might find that people will share things in a Zoom call with you that they might not even share in an office with a closed door. You might find a new level of confidence and clarity, confusion, whatever the case may be. But as a leader, don't you want that? Don't you want to know where people are so that you can help get them to where you need them to be? That to me looks like two things that leaders can do: shorten meeting times and set up office hours or opportunities for one-on-ones, because you can't meet people around the coffee maker or in the lobby for an informal chat.
Yeah, that water cooler has never been more missed, I think, right? It's like, and we see this, don't we? You know, again, the idea of the head office and the relationships and the culture of a head office versus the people in the virtual offices, in, you know, remote offices, and there is a disconnect. And you know, one of the strategies I used with the team, well, they actually came up with it themselves, was that they actually found that even when they had their team meetings, everybody in head office needed to be on their own screen as well. So it felt like everyone was equal, that everybody was actually communicating remotely instead of having all the head office people in the boardroom. So that was interesting. Again, a very different experience, simply because everyone's got their own screen. So it democratized the aspect of head office versus the rest. Fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Yeah,
indeed.
But again, and this is where, you know, I think, you know, our leaders taking the opportunity to engage their coaches and external facilitators to help actually, you know, sharpen these meetings, because there's a lot of pressure on the managers to be coaches now as well, right? And to be facilitators, as well as get the numbers in, you know, as well as, you know, taking care of the people, the numbers, the business. You know, it's not possible for one person to have all these skills and to deliver well. So I wonder if that's another opportunity to explore as well, is how are organizations utilizing their coaching resources? Indeed. And yeah, because we're trained to facilitate. If a coach can't facilitate, what are they paid to do, right? So I wonder if that's another opportunity to explore, just as we're talking as well. You know, and I have to say, you have such a great way of telling a story, Chris, with, you know, with that, you know, in so few words, you paint such rich pictures. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into leadership languages, because that's my personal passion too, is the study of language and listening to how we speak to ourselves, the words that we choose when we share, when we talk. You know, it's so powerful. And I wonder if, again, this electronic communication that has become the norm now, this makes language even more important.
I think it does. And it's like you say, it's a great equalizer, because we're all, I mean, don't let this background fool you. I'm in my home office, and we all are. And what that means is that on the one hand, we're all in the same boat. And on the other, it means that those who are willing to embrace this change and these differences, and to be able to put one foot in front of the other in the midst of uncertainty, are the ones who are the leaders. Because leadership, and I'm sure you would say the same thing, leadership is not a title. It's not the size of your office. Leadership can happen at any level. And if you want to know if you're a leader, don't look at your business card. Look at the impact that you're creating for others, and look at the action that you're taking. Because even in isolation, There's still action to be taken. There's still connection to be made. And without that connection, whatever your leadership initiative is, if you can't share your vision, how do you expect other people to hear it, to do anything with it, to support it, or to help you to reach your goals? So that's really the call for innovation and effective communication is to look at things in a new way, accept how they are, accept it. We can shake our fists at the sky, and folks in my country are putting their guns on their back and walking to the capitals, and it's very scary. I know. I hate to say that to you as an Australian. I'm sure that makes you crazy. It's unfortunate to see, but the point is that we can be angry, we can shake our fists, we can take whatever action we wish to rage against the machine, or we can step into this time because there are opportunities here. And that's not just some motivational mumbo jumbo. That's coming from someone who helps people to innovate every day. And I'm trying to look at innovative ways to help my business, just like you are, just like everyone on this call is.
Yep, innovation. You know, it's definitely the catch cry of what leaders and organizations and consultants and coaches are looking to provide. And I think this is where, you know, with the impact of COVID and so many companies, you know, shedding people, there's going to be so much, you know, a huge body of people out there where there's simply not the same types of roles to go into. So, you know, there's going to be a lot more consultants in the market because a lot of people, and whenever I hear this, I shudder. It's like I consult because I can't get a job. That's not the mindset of somebody who's going to help innovate. You know, we've got to grab our resources, don't we? And really find that way where each of us can have that unique impact that aligns with what each of us stand for. And it sounds like you're very, very effective in helping people do that, Chris, through who you are, through what you're committed to doing, through the way you communicate, the way you express yourself. And I loved what you said at the beginning too. It's like, well, how long do you want to wait before you can actually have the impact you want? You know, to write that book, to create the business you want, to get that investor funding. You know, how long are you going to wait? Because we really have finite resources of time and money, don't we? And I suppose when we don't have money, then we think we've got a lot of time. And so we do a lot for ourselves instead of investing in getting the help. So I think that's another sort of thing that entrepreneurs and leaders will balance is what value do they put on the investment for leadership development coaching and to accelerate that time from where they are to where they want to be. And the people who hear this and want to accelerate that journey from where they are to where they want to be, what's the best way for them to contact you, Chris? Because I'm conscious that we're coming up to the half hour now, and
So the easiest way to get in touch with me is to visit my website. It's westfallonline.com. And that's like Westfall, like the direction and the season, westfallonline.com. And on there, you'll see a contact form. And if you'd like to talk about what you've heard me say or what's on your mind or your goals for yourself personally or for your business, I'd be more than happy. And I've set up, and I will set up a 30-minute conversation with anyone who cares to ask. And I will take the time. Please just share with me what it is that we're going to talk about so that I know that what the agenda is and I can prepare for it. But I'd be more than happy to connect with you. If you don't want to speak with me personally, you can send me an email there. You can also find me via a search on Forbes.com, my Twitter handle, and Instagram, Westfall Online. And you can also find me on Facebook at The Real Chris Westfall. And that's how
The Real Chris Westfall. There's a few of you, is there?
Well, yes, evidently there are. I don't want to go there.
Oh, okay. And obviously on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, of
That's
course. I forgot to say
yeah,
LinkedIn. Yes, you can find me
yeah.
there as well, of course.
So yeah, look, that's really generous, Chris. And of course, your book. Where can we get hold of the book, the Leadership Language? Is that
Easiest way
on
to
Amazon or?
it is. Amazon is the easiest way to find it. You can find it in all formats. I narrated the audiobook. If that's your favorite flavor, you can also find it on Kindle. And that's the way to purchase it. And it is from Wiley, Leadership Language. Let me see if I can hold it up here. So you
Yeah,
can
that's
see what
brilliant.
it looks like.
Nice, clean cover as well.
Thank you. Thank you. The book's
Yes.
been doing very well. I'm very happy with it seems to have helped a lot of people, and organizations and even universities have turned to it as a resource for effective leadership communication. Because as I said before, leadership is not a title. It's something that we can do through service at any level. And if it looks like leadership is a game that is an individual sport, I would look again. If it looks like it's all up to you to make it happen, that's the exact opposite of how leadership works. Leadership is about service, and finding people that can serve your initiatives and your goals through effective coaching might be the best way for you to create the impact that's missing. At least that's what my clients tell me, and that's what I've seen in my own life, and I'm sure your clients would say the same.
Absolutely, and then because I sort of work a lot in the science and tech space, and
Mm.
it's like science is a team sport now. You cannot sit in your silo and come up with a COVID vaccine on your own. Like it's just, you know. So and this is the whole thing of balancing, the role and the I guess all the trappings that come with being that CEO or their title, right?
Mm.
And then what is the actual work of the leader, right? They're two very different things. But it certainly sounds like, Chris, that, yes, there's been a lot of development and coaching that's gone under the bridge, but I feel like we're just getting started in terms of the impact that we can provide on a global level as a global team of leadership development specialists who are passionate about bringing out the best in others so they can be innovating, so they can be moving forward. And that's certainly what inspires me. And I can see that's also a big driver behind why you do what you do as well.
True.
And, I really value your time today. And I've certainly taken lots of notes here while I'm listening away. I'm a big note taker. And I've really appreciated your insights and your time and there's a lot of kindness and gentleness that comes through in how you communicate. And I think that's really refreshing as well.
Well, thank you. And it is my pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for reaching out and giving me an opportunity to talk about this. I could talk about it all day and night. Yeah, and it's great to see someone who shares a passion for helping leaders to see things in a new way, because, just as our times have changed dramatically, our leadership coaching has to change. And if you're not working, if you're watching this and listening to the sound of my voice, and you're not working with someone who is helping you to reshape the context and to reframe what success means, you should be. You should be.
Yeah.
And there's never been a greater call, I think, for leaders, just as the scientists you work with, for greater collaboration. The thing I love about scientists is that every experiment is a successful one, even if the hypothesis doesn't work out. You know what I mean? Because if it doesn't, I think this is going to work, but it doesn't, it informs the next step. And if people are watching us and thinking, maybe I'm ready to take the next step, maybe it's time to try a new hypothesis and let go, because I tell you what was going on in leadership in 2017 or 2018 or even 2019, there's been a pattern interrupt, and it's time to take a new look. I believe that very strongly. Time to take a new look at what leadership.
And again, I think too, it's time to take a look at who your leadership coaches are, because so much of our business is also referral and what other people have said about somebody else, and that's only going to get stronger, I feel. But this is where I think as leadership coaches, we need to stand up and let people know what we stand for, and you know what our message is and what our story is, so that people then can choose whether the way we're thinking and the direction we're going, whether they see alignment with that. And that's certainly what I hear you're very clear about in how you operate, Chris. And that's probably why you write so clearly and communicate in such a discerning way, and really cut to the chase of what really matters. So I'm looking forward to reading my copy of Leadership Language, and I look forward to continuing, you know, our association, Chris. And if there's anything more I can do to support you, let's keep that dialogue going. So
I hope so.
Thank you
like
so
much
for joining us today.
You bet, Leah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. So long.